the inner understanding that we are meeting with God and that is our destiny, that we are supposed to be in a constant state of motion, incessant movement to depart from ourselves and to arrive at godliness. And the departure from ourself means to let go of ourself and in return allow God to emerge through our being. Now, that process obviously has a constant feature of desiring God, yearning God, falling in love with God. And it is concomitant with a state of utmost surety that this is what is exactly going to happen. Now, let's talk about this at a more mundane level before we proceed into the deeper levels. We are all sure that we are going to die. We know that life is not eternal. Yet, it does not, in a decisive manner, inform our outlook or our actions or our attitude. If we were to know that we are going to die and that the point of death or time of death is unpredictable, it can be at any point, then would we be doing many of the things that we do at present? Would we be wasting valuable time where we know that each breath is a borrowed breath and it has a huge payback? Would we be wasting these breaths? The fact that we are able to waste our lives and our breaths shows that despite saying that I'm sure I will die, we are not acutely aware of what we are sure of. If a person was sure that God is looking after them, would they be consumed with the distractions of this world, of poverty, of feelings of hurt, of feelings of failures, of resentment? Or would they be able to let it all go and say to Allah, I am sure you're looking after me and you know what is best for me? With the knowledge that you know what is best for me, and even though I have failed, you have I have full confidence that you will put it right, for the very fact that you've kept me breathing shows you want me to make it. If we were to know this, wouldn't that then allow us to be different in our attitude, outlook, and conduct? Imagine if we were with certitude that God forgives those who forgive others, would we then be able to hold resentment for others? Or would we gladly forgive and let it go? If we were to sure that our objective is God and God cannot come whilst we are ourselves with our dislikes and hatred, would we not want to quickly get rid of this dislike, resentment, and hatred so that the light of God can emerge? For that is the barrier blocking the light of God from emerging. If we were sure that when we give in the way of God, not only does God look after us in this world, but He will look after us in the world to come, would we be so reluctant in giving to others and sharing wealth with others when we are sure that God is the one who looks after us and He multiplies wealth when we give it away? Now, this is only at a very mundane level. We say we are sure of these things, but yet, because uncritically we are saying these things, they are not impacting us decisively. The Quran says, and we showed Abraham the dominion of the heavens and the earth, so that he may be of those who brings about certitude within his soul. So the process here is that when we reflect upon the nature of God, the nature of life, this emphasizes to our minds that no, we are meeting with God. There is an end to this life. There is accountability. That is certitude that sits within our minds. After that, we are expected to reflect upon that certitude so that it becomes a disposition of the soul that we are bearing with certitude. Now, in the scheme of wayfaring, certitude is nothing to do with the mind per se or the thinking brain. It is to do with the feel that is inside there. That we come to a point with God that we know that every moment of our life is accompanied by God and it is lived with God, with that certitude. So, therefore, every instance of our life is informed by this presence of God. Here now you can see that if a person has certitude that they have to meet with God, and the meeting with God is not in a place or in a time frame or in another realm, but meeting with God is right now, at this very moment, then you can imagine how it would refine the minds and the souls. We would not have the time to waste in vainful pursuits. Of course, we are allowed to be human and enjoy being human and our humanness, but at the same time, it will be with the and through the companionship of God. And I know it can become very, very difficult when God is that proximate to the soul. It becomes very difficult at that particular instance to conduct ourselves in a normal fashion because the awe of God or the love of God prevails so emphatically that we lose our sense to a great extent. But those moments are supposed to accompany us and they are supposed to carry us through life. And of course, being human, we will become at points mindless or we will stop feeling, but the feeling will regenerate itself. So the Quran says, وَعَبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Devote yourself to God, O Muhammad, until certitude comes upon you. Now, certitude here, of course, in the tafsir literature, it means certitude means death. But in the scheme of wayfaring, it means dying before death, to arrive at that point of acknowledgement of the presence of God, that it is as if we lose our own discretion and we see God. Again, the statement of the, it's attributed, I believe, to the Prophet that if a person bears certitude or has certainty, then the deficiency within the prayers and the fasts are not looked at by God. God, God foregoes this deficiency because the whole purpose of fasting and praying is for a person to arrive at that level of certainty of existence of God, meeting with God, and presence of God. The fast was supposed to do that in any case. The movement was not of the body, the motion was of the heart, and the body was a mere prelude to introduce the heart into the existence of God. So certitude is a attribute that has to of necessity accompany a wayfarer, because otherwise the inner motion does not take place in a most accurate manner. Let's describe this for a minute. The Blessed Prophet said that if a person were to fast and pray and perform Hajj and read Quran and give charity for 70 years, and if after that, when the name of God is being called, and if he can engage in worldly discourse or talk, then 70 years of that devotion has come to naught. It's become meaningless. Now, what does that mean? We say to the Prophet that I have worshipped God for 70 years. How can this be just reduced with one act of worldly speech during the mention of the name of God? Now, the response here of the Prophet is, of course, I'm extrapolating, that had he truly understood God through this excessive worship of his heart would move at the mention of God. The fact that his body has been striving and devoting does not mean much until the heart is ignited within God. That journey does not begin until the heart acknowledges God, and that acknowledgement is the point of commencement of the journey. The intention of certitude is that that acknowledgement of God becomes so firmly embedded that the journey becomes an accelerated journey. For somebody who knows that there is an exam in 2 weeks' time and they lack in the revision and preparation for that exam and have all the time to and they have the time to prepare, they would not want to waste their time. They would be preparing. It is something like that. That that yearning to be with God, that certitude that that is the only path would not allow any rest in the heart, and the heart will be moved swiftly. Now, I want to conclude this talk by just mentioning one or two things. That if we had the certitude that God knows best because I've handed myself over to God, then at that point we would not frown upon poverty or sickness. And it's very difficult because we are humans after all. But if sickness befalls us, then at that point, instead of saying, why me, and rushing for cure, of course, we should be finding cure, but losing our sanity and peace of mind, we can easily turn to God and say to God, you are the one who is looking after me. I have handed myself over to you. The body has never been mine and it has never been my concern, and to protect it, to cure it, to lengthen my life was never central to my existence upon this life, to my existence upon this earth. It was always you. So if you have given me sickness, then at once I will acknowledge that this sickness is good for me in terms of my return to you. So I thank you for that. And now, because I do want a lengthened opportunity of life to gain knowledge of you, I will ask for a cure from you and I will strive to cure myself. But if you will otherwise, then that is the best decision. That should be the attitude. Similarly, if we have poverty, we turn to God and we say, you know best. And I thank you for this because in poverty is my accelerated journey towards you. Had it not been said, had it not been so, you would have not given me poverty. So poverty does not become a test at that point. It becomes a bestowal from God. Sickness becomes a bestowal from God. Disappointment, when people disappoint us, it's a bestowal from God because we bear with certitude that these are the means and methods through which God is accelerating the journey. And if we knew with certitude that none of this is going to matter when I breathe my last, then as opposed to breaking through these pressures, we would actually grow through them, knowing full well that they are geared and directed towards me completing my own self in godliness. I think I've said enough for today, and I'll stop there.